We'll check our sound and okay, I think that we're live. I mean, there's a delay, but I'm going to just hide that and just look at you.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Well, I don't know if people are joining us, but I'm super grateful that you made time to chat with me today. Thank you so much for being here. For those tuning in, we are going to be talking about the Ginny Fund, which is a StolenYouth fund that supports survivors of sex trafficking. So I think we've got enough. Let's get started. I'll introduce myself and then you can introduce yourself and then we'll dive in. So I'm Shaunessy Jones and I am the Director of Development at StolenYouth. I started in January. So I think I can still say I'm new, right? I feel like under 6 months.
New.
Yeah, okay. And the Ginny Fund is awesome. And when I heard about it, I was like, oh, we need to tell more people about the Ginny Fund. So we're spending the next month or two talking about the impact and the need, and I'd love for you to introduce yourself too. Why don't you go ahead?
I'm Jana Goyenechea. I'm the Director of Aftercare at Scarlet Road, as well as the co-founder. I go by the pronouns she and her, and yeah, I've been doing the work of ending violence against women since about 2004 in some capacity. I've done international and local work, and yeah, definitely so much learning over those many, many years. So
yes,
it's been wonderful. And Scarlet Road, we started in 2007. So
okay, we'll have a chance. Is there feedback on me? Because
there is a little feedback.
Yeah, I know, and I'm doing tech and things.
You're doing it all.
Yeah, I hope that I don't need to have my live up. Tell me if it's bad, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm hearing feedback on myself as well.
Do you have Facebook up?
I do not.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if somebody's telling me my sound's awful. I'm afraid right now to turn off the live part of Facebook because I'm like, what if it just cancels us? We are figuring this out as we go, right? Okay, so before we dive too far into this, I did want to acknowledge that I am on Duwamish territory and I want to honor that land of the first people of Seattle. And I know that you're out in Kitsap.
Mm-hmm. We are on Coast Salish and Suquamish land, and we want to honor them as well.
Okay. And I find it very important to acknowledge that land that we're on, that stolen land. Mm-hmm. I think we take it for granted. And especially right now with everything that's going on, it's even more important to bring awareness to that. So thank you and I didn't say my pronouns are she, her too. So a little bit about the Ginny Fund. Let's give them some basics. So it was founded in 2017. Yes, 2017. And it is for survivors directly to apply for small grants that make a really big impact on their life. And as I've read through applications and heard stories, I've seen, something as small as $100 to help with food to like $1,000 to help with a medical bill. It runs the gamut. So we're going to talk today about how that has impacted the clients you're serving. And you're going to help us kind of get a better picture of that. Since 2017, we've granted over $100,000. So
it's incredible.
Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah.
And what I love about it is that anyone can give, right? And it's going to directly support a survivor, and it's going to make a big impact on their life. You can make a small gift, and it can make a big impact. So if you are listening today and feel inspired to give, you can pop over to StolenYouth.org and make a donation. So let's start with, tell us a little bit about Scarlet Road, what you're doing out there, and then we'll roll into how you've accessed the Ginny Fund.
Sounds great. All right, so we are the only nonprofit over in Kitsap County working with survivors of sexual exploitation. We started, we kind of had an organic beginning. We were never intending to be a 501c3. So we started out as a fun run. We were raising awareness in our community We were mostly Bainbridge Island, Poulsbo area. That was kind of the communities that we came from. And yeah, started as the fun run, and we were giving to local nonprofits in Washington State doing the work, which was fabulous. And then that second year into doing the fun run, we got connected with a local survivor. She had experienced local and international exploitation. And we really began asking the questions and really diving into, well, what does it really look like here? And how can we really make a difference in our community? Because it matters. And there is often this idea that, you know, all of us can understand, oh, it's happening in India and Thailand, but never here. So the work really was to raise awareness in the beginning. And it is still the work that we do, though it's one of the prongs. So now we have a 3-prong mission, and that first one is raising awareness. So we are trying to be much more intentional in focusing on those who are going to be first responders. So the medical community, law enforcement, other service providers, and really equipping them with knowledge and skills to be able to identify and then, you know, divert appropriately to services. So that's one of our prongs. We also do outreach, and our outreach, we have a prevention curriculum in middle and high schools. And that's been going, obviously super complicated with COVID right now, but we're getting really creative, which has been neat. So that is what outreach looks like, as well as it's all of our first responding, all of our touch points with survivors, whether they're self-referring or being referred from other agencies. It's building connection, building relationship, building rapport, so that when someone is able and ready to leave exploitation situations, that they have someone and we're there. So anyway, that's our second prong. And then our final prong is our aftercare prong, and that is the journey, the long journey from I'm ready, I'm able to leave my situation, and I'm ready to do the hard work, the journey. So that is, you know, comprehensive case management services. It's very much trauma informed and client centered. Each one of the people who come through our doors are so different with hugely different needs. And some of the things, you know, we can see over and over again, but there's such uniqueness in each situation. So we're always like, we haven't done this before. Let's figure it out together. So it is really that one-on-one effort, as well as connecting with services that we know and trust. So that there are soft handoffs to people, and because it can be really scary to access services.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the final prong. And there's also a lot of, you know, we want to build community. There's such isolation and exploitation. So building peer relationships and healthy community outside of themselves is a huge part of the task we have in front of us as well. So that's kind of an overview of the work that we're doing at Scarlet Road.
That is some incredible work you're doing out there.
Thank you.
Super impressive. And the, you know, the multi-prong approach seems like the only way that we're gonna raise awareness and prevent and serve those that have been trafficked, right? And out where you are seeing that need and then saying, well, someone has to do something. It sounds, you know, similar to StolenYouth wanting to like do, the founders wanting to do something impactful and to this community. And the Ginny Fund is directly for probably those that aftercare, which is what you are. Yes. You're the director of. Yes. So you know firsthand. What are there any, like, are you seeing trends, and like, are there any specifics like of applying for a grant and getting it and seeing the impact of it? Do you want to share if you can?
Yes, of course. So I guess the first thing, as far as trends go, you know, we're in a unique little area in Kitsap County. We have tons of military. We've got all these Navy bases, right? So we've seen over the years since, you know, 2007 to now, we've seen an interesting impact of when ships are in and when we see more frequenting of legal sex establishments and exploitation of others, a rise in domestic violence and sexual assault. So we definitely, there's correlation between those. We also have connection with ferry system. I mean, we have 4 ferries that are coming in and out of our area. And so even just thinking about that, we see a lot of movement of people back and forth. We've also seen a lot of gang involvement in the area, both locally as well as with the connections between Seattle and Tacoma. So those are just kind of generally some of the things that we see. I would say right now with COVID, a lot of the cases that have been coming through have been familial exploitation. And of course, we're not usually hearing about those things. I mean, that said, we've worked with kiddos as young as 6 obviously working with caregivers alongside of them, but, you know, 6 to in their 60s, right? So a wide gamut of individuals. But we've seen a lot of familial exploitation recently, and just thinking about the isolation again for COVID and a lot less identification of those kiddos, right? So that's been a big trend we've been seeing. The other big thing is financial vulnerability, right? We have so many people who were in a spot where there was a lot more stability in their lives, and then all of a sudden they were hit so hard with COVID. And we've had people return to sugar dating, you know, dating older men in order to pay those bills or whatever they have on their plate. And obviously it doesn't come without consequences, serious consequences. So we've had more of that, engaging in risky relationship or behavior in order to meet their needs. And then finally, this also kind of came at an interesting time, but we've been partnering a lot more closely with our jails and working on a referral process and identification, because there's been a gap. And in some of the questions, right, it's so nuanced, and you can't just be like, are you a survivor of human trafficking? Because people aren't like, yes, me, pick me. So anyway, it's been really cool to work with them and to create a better process of identification and referral. And because of that cool new development, we're seeing a lot more people with significant barriers, right? Like, you know, their criminal records, which keep them from employment and housing, and, you know, significant mental health issues and substance abuse. And so those are kind of some of the trends that we're seeing right now with COVID. I also want to just apologize. My kid is crying outside of my room. I don't know if you can hear that.
I can hear it a little bit, but you told me that your kiddos are sick and at home. So thank you for still being able to hop on here and chat with me. This is real life, right? Like this is, you know, my dog's at daycare, so it wouldn't be barking during Facebook Live. So
smart.
Yeah, so we all have to just kind of navigate it the best we can. It's totally fun. Thank you for sharing all of that stuff. That's like, wow. And the legal stuff and being, you know, going to the jails and then helping them, you know, identify and come at how they rebuild their lives out. I see a lot of applications for people that are wanting to expunge their records or have a lot of court fines, and those can be such a barrier. And like what it seems like is that it's a domino effect of, you know, one barrier creates multiple barriers. So like if you don't have an ID, right? Then how do you get an apartment? How do you get a job? How do you, like, you have to break it really down to think about, well, what's the lowest common denominator here is, you know, what's happening? How can we remove that barrier so that other doors are opening up for the survivor, right?
That's such a great way that you've put it, Shaunessy, because I think that sometimes we say like, this is a goal, or this is what we're working on with this client, right? But I think so many people aren't able to see all those little pieces that go into that one thing, right? And that's part of what we're doing with our survivors, is like breaking that down into small bite-sized pieces, because there are so many steps and there's so much impact for all of that. So thank you for bringing that up. That was a really good point.
Good. Okay. Well, I'm glad. It just seems like it's so overwhelming to make a move when, and especially when you're in your trauma too. Like, let's not ignore the fact that there's so much mental health support that's needed for survivors. And so the fund is there to help wherever the survivor needs, right? So we run the gamut, like you were mentioning. So do you want to share a story or two of a survivor that got a grant?
Yes. Yeah, I'd love to. So I guess in general, first I would say you guys have given so much. Like, you have supported our survivors so well, and that's been thinking about basic needs and services, right? Like groceries or gas, which again, so little, so significant. If someone's unable to eat or get to visit their kids with CPS or whatever, there's real impact there. So it's the basic stuff, dental work, phone bills. But I'm gonna get the baby really quick.
Yes, get the baby.
Hold on a minute.
We all want to meet the baby. Now I hear myself going. Oh,
I'm really sorry.
No, don't be sorry when you bring the. Hi, baby.
Hey, Shaunessy. Hey, team. So anyway, but thinking about two stories that have just really impacted me are, so we have one gal, she and her kiddo, she had a pretty young daughter who her abuser was her husband, the child's father. And she was out of the situation, but kiddo still had visitations with dad every weekend. And our client knew that there was exploitation happening, but kiddo wasn't disclosing. So she spent tons of money on various lawyers really trying to fight for her kiddo. And just recently her ex did get convicted. It's a big deal, but she was buried under legal fines and fees. And so we petitioned you guys to help with that. And you guys gave so generously, which was huge, right? Like, again, the debt is so overwhelming and every little bit matters and it counts for her. And so, yeah, that was one story that was just so amazing. And it's so cool to see this kiddo finally free, right? And then another one that comes to my mind, we had a girl, she was in 8th grade and she was being exploited. And after her exploitation, she was pretty seriously bullied by other schoolmates. And it made it so that she had to eventually go to part-time days. And then she had to be removed from the school. It just like wasn't safe for she or her family. And anyway, so she went from a straight A student to failing, and we again petitioned the Ginny Fund, and again, a generous donation for her and her family to relocate to a different state and for her to really begin a new life. Because here it wasn't an option for her. And those were two really amazing situations that come to my mind for how the Ginny Fund has really impacted our clients.
And you're powering through. I appreciate it. Those are really great stories. I mean, not great in the context, but like as a representation of what the Ginny Fund is there for, is sort of to remove the barriers, to move on in your journey, right? And if that means you have to locate, or you need your legal, you need your record expunged, whatever it is you need, that you can apply. And I really don't know that we've turned anyone down yet, maybe one or two over the years, but we try to meet all the needs that come through. So we're grateful for our partnership with Scarlet Road and that we can have the reach out into Kitsap because of you. I wanted to just give you, because we're almost out of time, like, is there anything you wanted to tell us about what's going on at Scarlet Road? I think you have something coming up.
We do.
Oh, he doesn't want to talk about the gala. Oh, buddy.
What else do we have in here? My bag of tricks. Come on, what do we got?
You don't like this, the beads?
Yeah, come on. This is really interesting.
Just give me 2 more minutes.
We do have a fundraiser coming up. We have our annual gala. It's coming up in 10 days. Actually, it's on the 22nd. It's from 7 to 8. It's obviously virtual. And we have, it's actually pretty cool. We're highlighting one of our survivor stories, and she is an incredibly brave human. She has wanted to give back in some way for the last 10 years. And she was like, I have no idea how this is going to materialize ever. And so when we approached her with like, do you want us to highlight your story? She was super pumped. And so just that her voice is going to be shared is really a big deal. So we're excited about that. And then we also have Dr. Gail Dines, who is a, activist scholar on pornography. And so she's going to be making those connections for us for how porn is connected intimately with sexual exploitation and trafficking. So it is going to be incredible. I invite all of you to show up. It'll be, I think, a really interesting time and some good music and all that good stuff. So
that's all, and it's only an hour. So like, what else are you doing? Where are you going?
Fun. Yes.
You might be vaccinated, but where can you go?
Right, exactly. Get your favorite drink. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll drop that when we reshare. We'll drop your share that information about your gala on the 22nd from 7 to 8.
Yes.
Your website is scarletroad.org. Easy enough.
Yeah.
And you can follow us on all the socials and learn more about us, but we'll put all that information when we reshare this video. Yeah. So thank you, and Cutie Pie down there. For just, I know you have 2 sick kids and you're like, I'm like, just come on, we'll make it happen. So we did. And I appreciate you sharing all those stories and all the great work you're doing out there at Scarlet Road. And if you feel inspired, you're watching this video and you feel inspired, you want to help survivors of sex trafficking and you want it to go directly to them, through the Ginny Fund, you can go on StolenYouth.org and click donate, and then click the Ginny Fund. Remember, even a small gift has a big impact. And we thank you for spending 20-something minutes with us to hear more about it. And thank you so much, Dan. I really appreciate your time. And
thank you, Shaunessy. And I do want to just say, I don't know if I've given this justice, but basically, I mean, when our survivors receive gifts from like the Ginny Fund gift, they're like, I can't even explain to you how much impact that is, right? Like, it's one thing to have your case manager, your advocate working alongside you, but to know that someone else cares, even like you were saying, if it's a $50 gift or, you know, much more than that, that has impacts. All of a sudden, there's other people who care about my life, right? There's this community of support, this web around me that was not there before. And that has huge impact. And like you said, Shaunessy, it doesn't matter how small your gift, that stuff matters. So thank you for making a difference in the lives of our survivors.
thank you. And thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next Wednesday when we're going to be talking to someone from Ops. We're just going to keep going around the circuit. Thanks, Jana.
Thank you, Shaunessy.